entire north side of town is searched. Police later arrest 2 women, but the man armed and extremely dangerous is nowhere to be seen.
Yes, somebody just either hit or dropped somebody here. They're bleeding. I don't know if it's the guy that was working here currently.
You know, I hit him in the artery, I hit him in the neck, I hit him in the groin, I hit him in the lung. In the fastest way possible, you know, so they teach you kill shots is what we call them, which of course is a lot of places I ended up hitting Pablo.
And if he just stays the rest of his life in prison, he's gonna get to live his life in jail. I'm gonna go get him. I just couldn't handle it.
There was no doubt about his guilt.
Nothing can come close to the crime scene photos. It was so graphic and so detailed.
Trying to beat the gallows in John Henry Ramirez's case was going to be very tough.
It took us less than an hour to come to a decision.
Not only did somebody kill my father, but they did it in cold blood.
I'm not gonna ask them to forgive me because, you know, I think about it and I don't know how I would react if someone killed a close family member.
Pablo Castro, father of 9 and convenience store worker of 14 years in Corpus Christi, Texas, was beaten and knifed 29 times to his demise for $1.25 on the night of July 14, 2004 by John Henry Ramirez, a 20-year-old ex-Marine who had begun using drugs at 12 and was, by the time he happened to spot Castro taking out the garbage that night, at the tail end of a multi-day alcohol, Xanax, and cocaine binge that he was fighting desperately to prolong. This is their story. Breathing his last. Ramirez left Castro breathing his last in a parking lot, fleeing the scene with $1.25 in change. He left for Mexico, where he evaded the law for a few years until agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation captured him near Brownsville, Texas, along the U.S. border. His 2 female accomplices, who had assisted Ramirez in 2 other double robberies the same evening Ramirez took Castro's life, were each arrested the night of the incident and sentenced to lengthy prison terms for their roles in the crime spree. In Ramirez's own words while recalling the night of the incident, he said that he was in the parking lot inside the car, and then he saw his friend struggling with a man who was Pablo Castro. He went out to separate them and Pablo hit him in the mouth, so he got angry. He took out the knife and started to hurt him. He then passed. He said he didn't know how to find another explanation, not even drugs, because at that time he was always high.
And that's what kind of stamped me out. And I realized, you know, I saw how hurt he was. You know, he was bleeding everywhere. And I was like, I knew I went too far with this dude smacking him around. So I go over there, I separate him, I start fighting him. I had stabbed him in the neck. I was in one of the trucks talking on the cell phone. I hear like a scuffle or something. I look and Angie is there.
He had a problem with his anger. He didn't know how to control himself, but he realized how serious it had been. Ramirez then left and he went to sleep at a friend's house. He said he didn't know that Pablo had passed away until the next morning when he saw his own face on the television news, and so he ran away to Mexico. Growing a family. He spent enough time in Mexico to believe he was safe. He married and had a son, Grasshopper. He traveled to Brownsville, Texas with his partner to give birth. He suspected that those who helped him escape gave him away. In 2007, he was arrested, and 15 years later, Texas him. The state sought capital punishment in Ramirez's case, and thus began a years-long process of Ramirez countering Texas's efforts to end his life, while expressing serious doubts as to whether he deserved to live at all. At his 2008 trial, for instance, after his own father took the stand in his defense, Ramirez asked that his attorneys withdraw all additional mitigation witnesses, further requesting that they read the jury the following verse from Psalm 51:3. "For I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me." The jury announced capital punishment for him unanimously. Texas is one of 27 states in the U.S. that still apply capital punishment. It is also one of the most active and has 5 executions scheduled from now until March 2023. In the years that followed, Ramirez's sin was indeed ever before him, recapitulated in court papers and media flares when his legal appeals, at times, succeeded. What he had done had permanently altered a number of lives, his included, and the nature of his sentence painted the balance of his years in shades of guilt and shame. Change of ways. It was while on Condemned Row that Ramirez met Pastor Dana Moore of Corpus Christi's Second Baptist Church and other Second Baptist Church members through the pastor's prison ministry in 2017. He became a member of the church despite being a Messianic Jew. Ramirez was scheduled to be on September 8, 2021. Ramirez, who had found himself transformed by Moore's ministry, requested that Moore be there to pray and lay his hands on him. Texas officials said, however, that Moore could be present during the but could not touch the inmate. Ramirez's case for religious rights ultimately made its way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and as he waited in a holding room the night of his planned 2021 the justices stopped the procedure. The suspension came at the last minute, after the inmate had eaten his final meal. Delayed execution. Castro's family was distraught, incensed. Aaron Castro, one of Pablo's sons, said that if Ramirez wants a priest to bless him before he's sent off, by all means go ahead, and that doesn't affect him one bit. He added that what affects him is why the process continues to get delayed time and time again. He said they always think this is going to be the year. This is the time. There won't be another there won't be another delay. But then something always happens. Aaron said that Ramirez is a disgusting human being and needs to be executed.
Stop trying to get around the situation. There's no way out. You need to be executed.
Things I've done in certain situations that I could have went the other way and it would have totally changed the outcome. You know?
Stop crying. He did the crime, and now it's time for him to get his ultimate sentence. You always think this is going to be the year. This is the time. There won't be another stay of execution. There won't be another delay.
Ramirez's defense team argued that not allowing the prisoner to be in physical contact with his pastor was a violation of the First Amendment, which guarantees freedom of worship and prison law. About 6 months later, the court ruled 8-1 in favor of Ramirez and his request to have his pastor's hands on him as he was executed. Chief Justice John G. Roberts Jr., writing for the majority, said Ramirez's religious rights were protected by federal law. Texas, he added, should be able to accommodate the inmate's request. If the pastor is allowed to be in the room, we do not see how letting the spiritual advisor stand slightly closer, reach out his arm, and touch a part of the prisoner's body well away from the site of any IV line would meaningfully increase risk. Justice Clarence Thomas, the only dissenter, said Ramirez appeared to be trying to delay his execution. The state of Texas, inelucutable and steady, caught up with Ramirez roughly a year hence on October 5, 2021. Then an employee in the office of Nueces County District Attorney Mark Gonzalez mistakenly filed a request for a new execution date. According to court records, the staffer hadn't consulted with Gonzalez, who opposed capital punishment before doing so. Gonzalez then submitted a request 2 days later to withdraw the warrant. The filed motion to withdraw the warrant was denied. The Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles voted against commuting the execution. By this time, all possible legal options to save Ramirez from execution had been exhausted. Unforgiving life. Ramirez, who lived in certain respects a hard and unforgiving life, took a hard and unforgiving view of himself. He never attested to a dramatic conversion on the inside, just a spiritual transformation that put him back in the mind of following Christ. With respect to his past, he told a reporter that there were a lot of people that believe there's a God and just don't live right. He added that he just wasn't obeying, he wasn't trying to be good. Once Ramirez's faith reawakened, he began to rely on Moore's spiritual guidance as his inevitable execution date drew nearer and nearer. After the a reporter who met with Dana Moore said Moore sounded very drained. He said Ramirez never really forgave himself for taking Castro's life. He said that about 3 or 4 months ago, John was even toying with the idea of not having him in there or anybody on his side and just letting that be all about Pablo Castro's family. He added that Ramirez was genuinely remorseful. It was almost to the point where it was like he didn't want Moore or anyone else in there because of penance, and just let it be about their family and just whatever they might need to get peace in their lives. On the day of the 5 October 2022, the 38-year-old John Henry Ramirez was transported from the Polunsky unit in Livingston to the Huntsville unit, a 44-mile trek. Once there, he stayed in a holding cell until 6 p.m. when he was walked to the execution chamber. In the chamber, Ramirez said he regretted his heinous act, adding that he hoped his punishment would provide some comfort to Castro's family. Ramirez reflected in his last moments on his inability to deliver comfort or restitution to Castro's family in any other way. He said that he has regret and remorse. He also said that he hoped in some shape or form his execution helped them find closure.
Spiritually or in their belief, not too many people are that far along. A father or a brother, and I don't expect them to forgive me, you know what I mean? I know it's hard. I wouldn't want to ask them to forgive me, but I just wanted to ask them know that I was sorry. I don't know how I would react if someone killed a close family member. I'm not going to ask them to forgive me because, I think about it and the warning starts the drug administration and you start feeling it, and I picture like what I'm going to say to the victim's family, what I'm going to say to my family, and it starts taking an effect. I've done it a couple of times. I picture myself being strapped to that gurney, and every time I do that, oh man, I get like anxious, you know, my heart starts racing. You know, a father or you know, a brother, you know, and I don't expect them to forgive me, you know what I mean?
To his wife, his friends, his son Grasshopper, Dana and homies, he said he loves them all, adding that just know that he fought a good fight and he was ready to go. It was as if he were morally inarticulate but not insensate. Ramirez could hear Castro's family but couldn't find the right words for them, could feel the love of God but couldn't always reflect it, either in his dealings with others or in his attitude toward himself. 11 witnesses, 5 for the victim and 6 for Ramirez, watched through a window to see the inmate take his last breaths.
I never hugged him, I never touched him in my life.
But I had a change of heart. I didn't know John Henry Ramirez has a kid. I don't want that hate cycle to continue.
You look at the hundreds and hundreds of people that are executed here. We are going to the Fifth Circuit to try to get a stay. They don't listen. Then we go to the Supreme Court, try to get a stay. They don't listen, or they might listen.
John Henry Ramirez has not been represented in the manner to which our Constitution guarantees him the right to be represented.
When you get sentenced to death in Texas, you're pretty much set that you're gonna die. It's rare that you're gonna get off death row. It could go down to the wire, and it most likely will.
He was executed by lethal injection. The lethal injection took 14 minutes to take effect. Moore laid his hands on Ramirez's chest and prayed to God for John to feel his presence, for John to feel his peace, and for everybody there to feel his peace, because he said that, John first, but it's still everybody else there. It's impacting their lives and affecting them too. John couldn't react to his prayer, nor did the others in the execution chamber. Moore stood waiting by Ramirez's side with his hand resting on him as the man laid before him and passed away. The coroner announced Ramirez no more alive at 6:41 p.m. local time. Moore said that he was just praying for God's presence to be with John as he took him home, as he was going to be with Jesus, so to just bring that comfort. That's all for today, folks. We will see you next time.